When it comes to PR, really, essentially, that's what it comes down to, is how do you distinguish yourself and how do you differentiate yourself? How do you make sure you're not just another product or not just another doctor?
Right.
You know, what is it that sets you apart? That's the big question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back to another episode of the Skintellectual Podcast. And today I have somebody on this podcast that I've been just trying to get her for months to come on. She is the most amazing. When I tell you guys that I found my hashtag wifey, this is who my guest is today. She is my secret weapon. The reason why, all of my projects are finding so much success right now. The woman behind the scenes that truly believes in one of my core pieces of belief, and that is, women supporting women and community over competition. And we all go farther when we go together. Like, this woman is the embodiment of that. Her name is Candis Melamed. She is my PR person, my work wife, my friend wife, and so many more beautiful things. And I'm so excited that she is actually going to introduce herself. Any introduction I do for her is not good enough. So Candis, why don't you just tell the world who you are and what you do?
That was incredible, Nicole. Are you kidding? I'm so humbled by that introduction.
Oh, you're amazing.
But yes, I am Candis Melamed, founder and CEO of Spotlight Group Agency, which is a full-service PR and marketing communications agency that specializes in the health and beauty industry.
What got you started in PR?
I actually found my way into PR, and I attribute it to my brother, who is 5 years older than me. And so when I was still in high school, meeting with college counselors and trying to figure out what my major should be or what major I should declare in college, and they're meeting with you going, do you like history? Do you like science? My brother was already in college, and at that point he had just switched majors from biology to journalism. And one day he came home and he said, the journalism department has this emphasis called public relations, and it suits your personality really well. You should look into that.
Interesting.
So,
brother looking out for you.
I know, really looking out for me. And he's a pretty good judge of character. He can pinpoint it. So I started, when I started college, I think it was my sophomore year, just before you start going into those upper division courses, I started to freak out. I was like, well, I don't know. I went in under the journalism PR major, but what if I don't like this? And I don't want to be in college for like 5 or 6 years. So I did my first internship in PR, and I immediately fell in love. I was like, this is perfect for me, because I don't like to be in the spotlight, but I do love asking a lot of questions and putting the spotlight on other people. And I did an entertainment internship, which was a lot of fun when you're in your 20s and doing red carpets and movie premieres. But also, I just learned so much, and I wanted to absorb everything that came my way. And so it was an unpaid internship, but I put in as many hours as I could and as much free time as I could. And slowly the woman I was working under started giving me more responsibility. So I was an intern, but here I was pitching and I was securing media opportunities. She had a celebrity doctor at the time, and that was my first introduction into medical PR. I was so excited. I was securing like Men's Journal at the time. I remember that doctor was a renowned ophthalmologist who had just worked with the FDA to approve a new lens, an implantable contact lens. And that first time that I secured a media hit, the first time I saw my work in a magazine and realized no one has any idea that that's there because of me, that they're reading that article because I'm the one that pushed the story out there, and I worked with the writer to make that interview happen. That was the biggest high for me. And I just wanted to keep feeling that again.
Wow, that's incredible. And you touch on something really special and unique. And, there's something that on this podcast, in previous interviews and even upcoming interviews, you always will hear me talk about what is your why, or like, how important is it to get close to your why? And, we spend a lot of time as people trying to define our purpose and analyzing why we do the things that we do. But, in this moment, you experienced that like almost intangible, indescribable moment where all of a sudden everything just clicked and you knew right then and there that you found your thing, you found your purpose. And so how do you think today, so fast forward, how many years you've been doing PR? 15 years, right?
15 easily.
15 years, fast forward. So now you are still very much behind the scenes. Force, guys.
My happy place.
I know. When I say force, this woman is a force. But for 15 years, you're still in an industry. PR is very fast paced. It is high pressure. It is deadline driven. Journalism has deadlines, and sometimes it takes staying up all night or, doing that. But how do you feel? Like, do you ever think back and remember that moment where you like clicked and you knew you found your why, that you found your purpose, and that you were in alignment with your purpose? Like, does that still help you stay motivated today?
It does, but every time I see our clients in media, even though that's evolved, so that could be a social takeover now, that could be, online press, that could be television segments, or even in print magazines, I still get that excitement. I still get that really excited feeling where I literally want to jump out of my chair and jump up and down, that I'm so excited this happened. And it's not just about, what's really interesting is it's not just about my why. For me, when I work with clients, it's also understanding their why. And in part, when I understand their why, that also helps drive me and our team to help them achieve their goals through media outreach, through PR. So when you talk about why, your why, connecting to your why, it's not just important, in my opinion, it's not just important for me personally, but it's important for me to also understand what the why is for the clients I work with.
So Candis, how did you find yourself in beauty PR?
My first job out of college was with a really small one-woman show PR agency that did a little bit of everything. They'd be considered a lifestyle PR agency. They had a few corporate clients, a lot of restaurants, and they had one small spa in West Hollywood. And the spa was probably my favorite client. I was able to really think of a lot of different story ideas with the founder and with what she did. It was kind of like a Balinese spa. And when I left that company, actually shortly after that, I started my own company. But as I was starting my own company, I really started to put the feelers out and to attract clients that I wanted. And for me, the gauge is, where do I ask the most questions? That's usually the path I should follow. And that was happening mostly in medical. So mostly when I worked with doctors. And I knew that that's the path I should follow, but the spa was so fun, and the beauty side of it just keeps it fun for me. So I combined health and beauty, the medical and the beauty. And that's, where I just started the niche as a health and beauty agency.
That's incredible. And, working with you, I have the ability to see just like how good you are at it and how passionate you are for it. But given that you've worked so closely with doctors, you worked in the medical aesthetic space, which is closely linked to skincare. And I also happen to know that you work with a lot of indie beauty brands and startups. So we would really love to dive into that. So do you want to just touch on like what indie brands you've worked with and what you have found along the way, because you've worked with several, that just makes an indie brand so unique?
Absolutely. A couple indie brands or smaller brands that I've worked with were Em Steves, was a skincare brand. Few years back, I worked with her, and she, the founder, Mally, had gotten it off the ground, but then wanted to take it to the next level with exposure. And then another beauty brand, indie beauty brand that I was fortunate enough to work with, and I absolutely love them, are the women from Nude Sticks. You guys may have heard about them.
Yeah.
It's not just about the brand. I really love all of them. Jenny is the mom, Taylor, the whole team there, Wanda, who's their head of marketing. That entire team is like, not only are they the founders' family, but they treat their entire team like a family. And so I was lucky enough to work with them because for a short period of time, I represented Cover FX, which is a much bigger brand. But little did I know at the time that they were going through a transition and Jenny was leaving the company. A year or so later, I heard back again from her when she was in LA. They're based out of Toronto, and heard about this little project they've been working on, and they were so excited about it. And of course, I was like extremely pregnant at the time.
Oh my goodness.
I remember meeting them in Beverly Hills, and it was a social meeting. It was just like great to catch up, and this is so exciting what you guys have been working on, and it was so cool. It was like makeup sticks, and they were so versatile. And at that time, I remember thinking, this is amazing. Like their target was millennials, and they had really developed the line because the daughters were millennials. But I'm thinking, man, I'm like on the go all the time. I'm, soon going to be a working mom. Like life is busy. This is perfect for anyone who's busy. And I had already, had a quick working experience with them through Cover FX. But when I met with them, they told me they were actually doing an exclusive launch with Space NK. And then after that period, after the 3-month period, they'd love to work with me again. And I was so honored. I was so excited. And we worked together for 3 years and worked through Space NK, and they were in Urban Outfitters, and then slowly they developed a deal with Sephora, and it wasn't just about North America, but they were international as well. And in a lot of instances, they were exclusive to Sephora internationally, and so our agency supported them even internationally. So they were, let's say, Sephora was doing a media day with a lot of their beauty founders in Australia, as an example, and we did additional outreach to drive editors specifically to the nude sticks table at Sephora and set up those meetings for them. It was such a great experience working with them, and they just had such a positive outlook, and they were genuinely passionate and excited about their brand and what they did and what the quality that they were putting out there. It wasn't just a gimmick. It wasn't just to sell. You could feel that it was genuine.
And I think that's what really translates out, right? So you've had so much experience. And I think now, a lot of our listeners are founders or aspiring founders, in the indie beauty space. And one of the things that we know is that to be successful, when you're in a direct-to-consumer position, you need PR. Like you need to have PR. Without PR, your story doesn't really get out the same way. So when would you say, so for our listeners, like when is the right time? Because PR is not cheap. PR, you need the right team. You have to find the right people. There has to be budgets in place, not just for the agency or the person helping you, but, you have to do mailers and press boxes and press samples. And a lot of times there are plane tickets involved. So there's always a question about to PR or not to PR. But a lot of times the results of PR aren't always tangible. But if you're serious about growth in the space, PR is a necessary evil. You're not going to go as far without it, because you have to have, if you're a direct-to-consumer brand, you have to have brand recognition. Okay. And so, while that amazing placement in Vogue or Elle or In Style might get you lots of impressions and lots of views, you may not get sales from that, but what it does do is that the endorsement from those books legitimizes you as a key player in the space. And the more of that you do over and over and over again, all of a sudden you reach that critical mass point where your brand is known, it's seen, you're getting talked about. And those actions are what result in sales. So we believe it's not a question of to PR or not. Yes, you have to PR. It's more of a question of when, how, and with who.
And PR also, it not just like legitimizes you, but it strengthens your brand. So it's there to raise awareness and strengthen brand recognition.
At what point do you think it's important for a brand to start doing PR? Is it like from the get-go? Should they reach certain milestones? What is your opinion on that?
Well, it's different for every brand, right? Some of it is budget constraints, budget restrictions. They may need to hit a certain sales goal before they're ready to take that revenue and invest it back into the company to, really strengthen the brand. Because essentially that's what PR is. PR is there to not just raise awareness, but to help strengthen the brand. So if the name keeps popping up in different places, and eventually when consumers are looking to make a decision and they come across the brand name, they'll remember they read it. And so it might drive them to pick that up more. And it's interesting because we found, especially working with nude sticks and a few other, at-home dental care products that we represented, that online media was actually a really interesting way to drive sales, because they weren't reading a magazine, then putting it down and possibly forgetting the name before they made a purchase. They could click right through from the story to the website and do a drive direct to sales. So it really made for an interesting dynamic. And it seems very run of the mill right now, but you're thinking years ago, or if you're looking back years ago, it was very, mainstream media was print and it was television. And then it started to diversify a little more with online media and how much content publications were putting out online, and also with social media and, the hybrid that lies there with PR.
Right. And you're seeing more and more of that today, where, a lot of editors kind of do their own thing through their social media, even if they're affiliated with some of the larger books. So where do you see the biggest impact for smaller indie brands? Do you see it more online or print, or both?
Well, I'm a believer that you want to diversify and you want to be everywhere, because if you're only online, then that's great. And I do believe, especially for indie brands, that online is the way to go, because a lot of times they don't have distributors. And so, they're doing online sales. So online is going to help drive directly back to the website where people can learn more. They can, click through. But I do believe that you really want to expand your reach. You want to do podcasts. You want to do television when you can, and find creative ways to do them. It's really hard for brands to do television, because typically when producers hear it's a brand, it's usually an integration, or they want it to be a paid spot. So finding organic ways that don't necessarily cost dollars. They may cost dollars in products, like if you do an audience giveaway, but they're not costing you dollars to participate. Those are some creative ways to do it. And just to circle back around, Nicole, to your question about when brands should start thinking about PR. I know I mentioned that it's different for every brand based on budget, and that may be a big driving factor for the most part. But, typically the best way to look at when you're ready for PR is several months before a launch. Now, your brand could have already launched, and let's say you're coming out with a hero product, or you're going to be launching another SKU, and you really want, now you've worked through your kinks and you really want this to be the time that the brand shines. That's fine. But don't approach an agency, or don't start looking for an agency like right before launch. So one thing to think about that I think is a big misconception is the timeline that's required when you do hire an agency. First of all, I recommend always interviewing multiple people, multiple agencies, because the one thing that I think is more important than anything else is that connection between you and your publicist, or you and the agency.
Absolutely.
Do they get you, and do you get them? Because it's a lot of trust, right?
Exactly. Like your PR person is your face, your extension to this very important world. And so you have to feel them. They have to feel you. You have to have trust that just rises far above and beyond. And I agree with that. I mean, you've 100%. Got to find your human. #wifey.
Yes. You want, we as publicists are an extension of our clients. We are going out on behalf of our clients, talking to media. So you want to really feel comfortable with the person who is representing you and your brand. Do they get it? Or are they just trying to make a quick buck, which I'm not a fan of, but they exist. and they're out there. So really it's interview multiple people and give yourself a lead time. So if you have a product launch that's happening, in a few weeks, it's going to be ready in a few weeks, you really should have started thinking about an agency 6 months ago.
Absolutely.
To give yourself enough time to interview an agency, hire them, and give them a chance to develop the media facing materials that they need. So even if a brand has a website and they have a lot of stuff written, the way we write as publicists, the way we write for media is a lot different. I mean, think about when you read an article, you usually read the who, what, where, when, and usually the why in that first 2 or 3 sentences, right? It tells you what the story is about.
Absolutely.
And writing a pitch and, or even just an email to an editor that you've known for a really long time, to be able to craft that and to be able to give them copy that is what I like to say, like handing it over on a silver platter, give them everything they need, and understand that they're working on deadline and they've got a lot going on and they've got, multiple stories they're working on. So make it as easy as possible.
Totally agree with that. So one of the things, on this podcast, we've interviewed several beauty directors and beauty editors. And one of the questions that I like asking them is, you see everything. Editors see everything before it comes to market. So by the time a consumer has a product in their hand, like that product's been in existence for at least 6 months to a year, editors have played with it, they've tested it. There's been a lot of press that goes behind it. So they always see the trends. They know what's coming. And essentially the editor has a lot of power in determining, what they like and what resonates with them and what they think resonates with their consumer before they put something out there. So one of the questions I like to ask them is like, how do you know something has staying power? And especially for smaller brands, like it's very different than like a Lauder or a L'Oreal or a P&G that can throw millions of dollars at a PR budget. But when we're starting up, whether or not we have
established brands.
Absolutely. But, whether we have funds or big funds or little funds, like startups are very different because we just don't have the presence. So, one of the things that has been a common response from all of these editors is just that, listen, we know your product's good. We can test the product. The product's probably great. But if you're small, we need something more. We need to understand your why, your story. We have to be able to connect you, your product, and your brand to something bigger than just another serum or just another sunscreen or just another moisturizer. The world has...
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, like the world has enough already. So I want your take on that. Like, how important is it for you to work closely with your PR to like really nail that story?
It's extremely important, especially now when the market is so saturated and there are a lot of smaller brands and apothecaries popping up, and media want to support them. Consumers want to support them. So how do you differentiate yourself? When it comes to PR, really, essentially, that's what it comes down to, is how do you distinguish yourself and how do you differentiate yourself? How do you make sure you're not just another product or not just another doctor?
Right.
What is it that sets you apart? That's the big question. And that's usually the question I like to go in asking. And typically when I work with clients, I don't want to go hunting for the answer. I like to have that first call with them, like our first, discovery call,
It's the first thing you asked me. It's the first thing you asked me.
And you know why? It's because I want to hear it from you. I don't want to guess for myself. And when I hear it from you, I know that, first of all, that's how I go out on your behalf, because I know where your heart lies, where your mind is, and what it is that you're trying to convey. And also, as a publicist, it gives me a sense of, do you know how to convey what it is that you're trying to say? Or do you need a little help crafting that language?
Right.
Do you need a little help staying on point? Because I've also met people who know their why, but it takes them such a long time to get to that point.
Yes.
That when I hear it, I know that, if it was a media person, they would have lost interest by now. Right.
Totally.
Again, it's like
exactly.
Thinking soundbite, think quick.
Exactly.
And so it's extremely important.
Got it. So there are some, I'm going to transition just a little bit because this plays right into having a strong story, but there are a couple of terms now that are being kind of thrown around, and each word has two sides, right? Each word has okay, this is valid and accurate, and the other side, this is fluffy, we don't know. So, and I know that you've got some strong opinions and thoughts on this, but, a lot of brands coming out now are clean brands and sustainable brands. And as you know, this podcast is dedicated to clarifying what sustainability and beauty really means and actions that we can take as founders to lift the needle. And with every interview, we try to get closer and closer to like what actually makes sense and what sticks. And so I would love you just to share your thoughts on clean, share your thoughts on sustainability and what that means for you, as well as like from a PR point of view, if a brand is ready to start pitching.
Well, I think as a publicist, for me, I feel like it's my job to have a good understanding of how media works, how they think, what they're looking for. And like I said earlier, how to make their life as easy as possible with what I bring to the table. So that is not just information, but that's being responsive when they ask for something, when they email, understanding their deadlines and being able to meet them or exceed them. And that also means knowing that they can read through the BS. Okay, editors are really smart. These are most of the editors that I work with. I know they've been in this industry since I started, because I remember seeing their names, and even though they might shuffle through, or they've gone from being a digital or beauty editor or being a beauty director to now being a freelancer because they wanted to move out of the city and have kids, it doesn't make them any less knowledgeable on the topic. So with that comes knowing that terms like clean beauty are what they would perceive as being gimmicky. I mean, at this point, if you're not a clean beauty brand, like, what are you doing?
Exactly. What are you doing?
Yeah. Like,
what do you mean you're not
it's
clean?
it's almost maybe when this kind of trend started, that would have been a new notion. Now it's baseline. Like, everyone expects you to be clean. Sustainability is a term that I think is starting to catch on. It's not at the same place where clean beauty is, but it is starting to catch on, and you're hearing it more.
Right.
So really what brands need to do is clearly specify how they are doing those things. So it's not just about saying this is a clean beauty brand or a sustainable beauty brand or environmentally conscious, as I like to say. But it's about specifying. So like, for example, with Amethyst skincare, what we're doing is we are clearly stating how and why this is a sustainable beauty brand. So if we're actually making that claim, we're following it with, they have a direct relationship with TerraCycle, so everything is 100% recyclable. They have waterless production. They, the brand uses aloe instead of water when possible, so that they're conserving natural resources. The brand is committed to giving back to 4Ocean, which removes plastic from the world's oceans. And
Absolutely.
For every 5 Amethyst products, 1 pound of plastic is removed from our oceans. Those are all tangible things. And I think that's where brands can differentiate themselves. And that's where it's almost like saying, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm not just trying to jump on a bandwagon here by saying I'm a clean or sustainable beauty brand. These are the actionable items that we as a brand are taking. And I think that's when beauty editors look and say, like, they're serious. Okay, they really mean it, because these are not just the 1 thing or the 2 things that they've done. These are the 5 things they're doing to reduce their carbon footprint, to conserve natural resources, to really first and foremost have the environment in mind.
I think, what you're saying are such words of wisdom, having those tangible effects, because even, one of the things that I am so interested in, and there will be a majority of episodes, not a majority, but a good number of episodes dedicated to figuring this out. But you're starting to see a lot of communication around like carbon neutrality, climate neutrality. And basically it's all about like purchasing carbon credits that you can offset your carbon emissions from, shipping something by plane, by planting a tree somewhere, or there are other efforts that are intended to try to take carbon out of the air. But like, how do you quantify it? Like, how can you really, like, it's good to have the effort in place and to try. And of course, like, planting trees is better than not planting trees. So I'm not saying anything bad about it, but like, how can you really quantify the result that is that it's causing, right? So, it's good if you've got something. For us, it was important to have something tangible. And I think it's important for brands to understand that like it's impossible cost-wise and time-wise to put in 100% sustainability across the board. We're just not there yet. It will, I believe, we'll be there 5 to 10 years from now. But if there's like 1 or 2 things that you can do really well today, do those. And I think if each of us as founders collectively does 1 or 2 of those things, like the impact that we have actually, is pretty powerful. And as we start to make those changes, as smaller brands, we are a lot more nimble. We can make changes faster than bigger companies. And I think, PR brings us the ability to put a voice behind what we're doing. And that is, one of the number one reasons why, we reached out to Candis. Like, she is a force. She is a force and understands how important it is to say, okay, you know what? We've got amazing products. A lot of brands have amazing products. Like, what is it that we can do differently? And, even in the creation of this podcast, our goal was to try to find solutions to be more sustainable in beauty and then give it a voice so that others can do the same. So Candis, we've got just a couple of minutes left. And this question I love asking, I ask almost everybody on the podcast, but I know that you have such an amazing answer. So if you could come back as any non-human species, what would you be and why?
I would be a lion.
A lion.
Come back as a lion.
That is so interesting. Tell us why.
Well, first I'm a Leo, but that's not totally why. It is in part because lions are pack animals, so they've got each other's back. And I just love that it's the female lion who goes out to hunt.
Okay, I'm scared.
That goes out and if it's not for her, there's no food to be had, and there's a level of that female empowerment, again, going full circle here, Nicole, that female empowerment that comes with, in my opinion, being a fierce lion. So maybe I should specify I would be a female lion.
A fierce,
I'd be a lioness. I'd be
female a lioness. That she is, but kind of the kindest one you'll ever meet. She's got, Candis has
I'm
this
not
amazing
a typical Leo.
Right. Like, she just has this amazing duality of, when she walks in a room, I know you guys can't see her because you're listening to her, but first of all, she looks just like Julia Roberts, like the girl's stunning. But when she walks in the room, she brings this air of just wisdom and quiet and calm and empathy and compassion. And when you marry those with like just her fierce tenacity to make things happen, you really do have like the most amazing PR person you can imagine. So when you are out interviewing your agencies, when you are trying to find, who's going to represent you, this is the perfect example of the chemistry that really can help you take your brand far. Amethyst had to start somewhere. We started from zero, and she saw our vision right away and believed in us and has helped us. And so that is, why we had her on this episode today, so that you can find that person that can believe in your brand and help, amplify your voice too. So Candis, any other wisdom or closing comments you'd like to share?
I am so humbled by your words.
Every one of them.
Now. Thank you. Any other words of wisdom? No, I think it's about really knowing, again, just really knowing your brand and when is the right time for you. And you may not have that answer. So, speak to multiple PR people and really get a sense of who understands your vision and your brand and can really give you an unbiased view of how to get there. There have been plenty of times where I've told people they're not ready for PR yet.
Yeah.
So it's about being, it's about finding an honest publicist, an honest agency who can help guide you and help achieve those goals and understand that just to understand for people who want to do PR that it doesn't happen overnight and it takes time to build it, especially if you're a small indie brand. It takes time to break through the clutter, get editors' attention, get them to understand that you're different, even if you've got 10 things that set you apart, 10 actionable items. Being able to break through the clutter, being able to break through the budget of bigger brands who also have, clean beauty lines is challenging. And so you need to be able to have patience and understand that it takes baby steps. And I really believe it's a snowball effect. These are little things that you put in place and that you do that begin to add up.
I totally agree with that. And these are just such wise words. So Candis, if anybody wants to follow along with the amazing things that you're doing or just stay in touch with you, where can they find you?
They can find us on Instagram at Spotlight Agency. Spotlight, AGNCY. Agency with no E.
Okay. Thank you everyone so much for listening. We wish you an amazing week and we look forward to having you back for our next episode.